Hello, can you hear me now? Hopefully you can hear me now. Did I just chat for ages? Welcome to my new stream, the Deload stream. I hope you're all good. I was just explaining that basically deload in gym's terms is basically when you work really hard for a period of time at the gym, you really pump those muscles and you put them through a lot of strain, and then you have a deload week, which is basically a period of time where your muscles get to relax and chill out and process everything that's just happened to them in the last few weeks. So basically we're going to apply the same principles but to this FPL stream. This deload stream is basically where we're going to be able to relax and chill our FPL muscles. We're going to reflect over the game week that's just gone and look into the game week ahead. So Lewis, FPL Reaction, is going to be joining me in just a second. It's going to be a weekly thing, so I'll bring him in just a moment. But before I do that, just a massive shout out to FPL Fella for subscribing as we were in the intro. So thank you very much, buddy. Also wanted to just give you guys a quick rundown on what I think my schedule might be coming up in the next few weeks. So hoping to do this deload stream with Lewis on a Monday. Then I'm hoping to do a game week selection team video, which will delve in a bit more into a review of my team from the game week previous, and obviously looking ahead to the next game week. That'll be out on like a Tuesday, hoping maybe Wednesday at the latest. Then on Thursday, we will have the 5 things with FPL Fergie. Make sure you check that out. Seriously, guys, Fergie is a fantasy champion. He has won fantasy games, so he knows a lot. He's going to give you lots of tips. It's a great little 20-minute, 30-minute video to watch. And then on Friday, we're going to have a 30-second kind of captaincy video that'll come out, and that'll be on my TikTok. Yes, I'm on TikTok these days, and Instagram, so make sure you go and check that out. You'll also be able to find it hopefully in my shorts on YouTube, which is, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of my YouTube page, you'll see all my shorts there. There's a couple of cool little reels and fun things as well. So okay, let's get reactions in. So sorry about that, guys. Welcome to a few people in the chat. We've got Sam, Kirk, SV, Dizzy, Nucleus, and Migtavius. Hi guys, I hope you are all well. I'll just switch into getting Lewis in. So hi Lewis, welcome to the stream. How are you, buddy?
I'm really good, thanks, Nymph, after this very hectic week. How are you?
I'm good. So just to let the people know, Lewis is cameraless at the moment, so he's going to be doing this audio, which is why he's got a nice little picture with a sound bar, but hopefully we'll be joining us soon on video, so that'll be cool. So yeah, Lewis, I mean, how did you get on in game week 1? I think that's probably a cool place to start.
Yeah, really nice place to start, actually. I think, to be honest, everyone, well, a lot of people seem to have a really good week this week. And I think a lot of that was to do with 1 or 2 premiums, especially. I mean, how did you get on?
Yeah, so I was quite lucky. I hit the 100 club just
Wow.
literally like on the nose, thanks to Antonio. So I only had Antonio left going into the Monday night match. So it was like a little bit like, yeah, well, this isn't going to happen. And I had ummed and ahed about whether to go with Rafinha or Ben Rama for the game week. And so when we were going into that, I was a little bit like, oh gosh, you know, I can't see Antonio getting me 13 points here. But yeah, absolutely he did. Fair play to him. I mean, yeah, like that, missing that penalty, I was like, oh, you know, I'm going to end up on just short here, aren't I?
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah.
it's never nice to finish just before the 100 mark, is it? I mean, 99 would be a bit of a killer, and I'm sure there's people out there who have hit 99, but yeah, unfortunately for me, it was only 91 this week, and I say only, and I think that has a large part to do with being on Twitter. There's a lot of huge scores out there at the moment, isn't there?
Absolutely. I mean, it can be a bit daunting when you see people's scores up on Twitter and you're like, oh man, like
Yeah,
it's the sort of thing where I'm there, I've got 100 points and I'm like massively grateful for it. But then I'm there thinking, if I'd had Ben Rama in my team, I'd be on X amount of
exactly.
points
Yeah,
now.
exactly. And I think you mentioned that one of the sort of choices you had to make was Rafinha or Benrahma. I
Mm.
was on the sort of in the stance that although a lot of people were going for Benrahma at the time, I was pretty much stood there really strong, thinking this is one of those situations where it's a bit of a hype. There's a bit of a hype around Benrahma, and I'm staying strong and I'm sticking to Rafinha and I'm trusting. But yeah, he just went mad, didn't he?
You really did. Yeah. For me it was less about sticking with my gut and more, I think, just thinking back to last season and knowing how well Rafinha had done for me, and I think that's kind of where I was on that. Okay, so I just brought the Kings of the Gameweek up, so the dream team, and I think it'd be really cool just to go through some of the heavy hitters for points this week. Of course, a lot of them will be players that we haven't even considered because that's usually what happens in the Kings of
Mm.
the Game Week team. Um, but yeah, I mean the big guns first. Fernandez and Salah. We can't get away from chatting about those guys, right? So I'm assuming you had both, Lewis.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, well, a lot of people that I know were pretty much Bruno and Salah, although there were a few people in the community that were sort of Bruno.
Mm.
So a lot of people didn't have Bruno.
Yeah.
I think based on, I mean, they didn't make that call based on nothing. He had pretty declining stats at the latter end of last season. So I wouldn't worry about it too much if you didn't own Bruno because we now know that he is capable, and well, we knew anyway, but especially with the decline in stats, and there was a lot of rhetoric around Pogba starting, and if Pogba had a negative effect on Bruno's points, and obviously that wasn't the case this weekend, was it?
No, no, and definitely towards the end of last season, we did think that was the case. But
Mm.
yeah, as we can see on the screen there, Pogba with 16 points and Fernandez with 20 points. I mean, I think um, Viking, FPL Kingy, he managed to have both in his team. So fair
Mm.
dues to him on
Wow.
that one. I can't say I ever considered Pogba from the start, but yeah, I mean, if you did, then that's some kind of fantastic, isn't it? So yeah, I think Ben Rama and Antonio are probably the next ones to move on to. Of course, we
Mm.
did touch upon Ben Rama to start with and Antonio. So, what are you thinking about these guys going forward? Should we, you know, knee jerk Ben Rama into our teams now? With 12
Yeah.
points last
Um,
match, I mean, it is tempting when I'm sat there with Rafinha or possibly Greenwood, who could be a rotation risk now, to just go, ooh, shiny, Ben
yeah.
Rama.
I think it's just important to that we made this team for a reason. We chose
Yeah.
Rafinha for a reason, and
Hmm.
and knowing that he will come strong over a period of time. Because I mean, we look at West Ham, and we know they've got pretty good fixtures. They have Leicester next, who are conceding, and then they play Palace and Southampton, and then they play United. So in terms of that, the short period, the fixtures are there for Ben Rama. But I'm not too sure he's definitely going to outscore Rafina, although he did look so good, didn't
He did. He was
he? He was
like
on
literally
fire.
every time he went forward, I was like, oh no, stop going forward. Literally. But then saying that, Rafinha looked really, really good too. And he did miss a really
Big
good
chance.
chance towards the end and had plenty of chances also, like for his
Yeah,
teammates to finish off his chances too. So yeah, I think it was just one of those weeks. These 50-50 calls in the past, I would really let them bother me and I would get really worked up by them. But now, doing my video with Fergie, I'm a bit more chilled. I'm a bit more like, you know, we can't see into the future with this. All we can do is go for our best pick at the time and hope for the best
Yeah,
effectively.
I think we've got to. I think those that don't own Roma just need to sort of remember that he wasn't great last season, and he had. I mean, he had a pretty good pre-season. I mean, that's probably an understatement. But in terms of basing what basing not having Roma on stats, it's a pretty logical, a logical decision. Now, I wouldn't beat yourself too much about that because I know I'm not. Although it would have been nice to have Roma actually, but can't have more, can we?
No, we can't. Just as we talk, I'm just gonna refresh FPL Fella's sub so he gets his name up on screen there. So anyone who's new to the channel, if you'd like to sub, your name will pop up there and also be along the bottom of the screen until somebody else subs. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. We did have a question from Dr. Mukat. Love that. Is 79 points good? So I would say anything above 60 points, right, Lewis, on a weekly basis is what we're aiming for, really, as FPL veterans, I guess you'd call us.
Yeah, I mean, at one point I did sort of look at my own score, and it was 91. I think this should be a lot higher. Now, I think a lot of people within the community sort of feeling that, a lot are feeling that way. But no, I think 79 points is a really good score. I definitely think it's something to sort of move forward with. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, you can see all these massive scores right now, you know, these 120s and whatnot. But if they then go and get 30, 40 points next week, whereas you stay around the 60, 70 points most weeks, you're laughing in comparison because that's consistency is key. Like we've discussed it loads of times on this channel before. Consistency is where it's at. So that's what you need with your points. And by the way, guys, if you have any more questions for us, pop it in the chat. We would love to help you guys out. So, Lewis, the one thing that kind of came about this game week was the emergence of the 4 million defenders. So do you
Well,
want to kind of talk me through some of the ones that started and are possibly worth looking at whilst I kind of get them up on the screen for people to
yeah, of course.
see?
So, I mean, in terms of the first one, and I think this is probably the most owned or the most sort of hyped. I'm right. So is Tsimikas, if I'm saying that
Mm-hmm.
correctly.
Yep,
Um,
he was just that Liverpool guy here in the first stream that we did when I had no idea what he was called. But yeah, Simicast, you're good, buddy.
yeah. So with Tsimikas, in terms of my own team, I was looking ahead and thinking, right, because I was quite closed off using my wildcard a little bit early. So what I wanted to do was put in place a pretty long-term team, which limited transfers. So I went without Simicast. Bit of a bummer actually. So I'm not too sure if you owned him. Do you own him?
Yeah, I did. I really agonised over Greenwood or Jota in order to facilitate getting Simicast in. And in the end, I was kind of led by one of the community videos I did on the channel, which I think it was Gianni and the Cheetahs, and they had said that Greenwood was one of their kind of gems. I think you were in the video too, Lewis. And they were so convinced he would start given all of the other injuries and stuff like that. And I thought, well, if Jota gets a goal and Simicast gets a clean sheet, I can kind of offset the points as long as
Yeah.
Jota doesn't go mad. So I thought, whereas the Leeds game I thought would be, the Leeds United game would be quite open. So I genuinely thought get Greenwood in and then go with Simicast so that I can double up and get the Liverpool clean sheet. So yeah, I did actually go with him.
Yeah, so great. I mean, a great shout, obviously, and we know it's pretty short term, don't we? I'm not too sure we know the extent of Robertson's injury. Is it 4 to 6 weeks? But I'm pretty sure Robertson will probably come back. And I think obviously it was nice to leave that spot open, that third spot open for Jota, and just see how he did.
Yeah.
And now I'm sort of having second thoughts because obviously we don't know if he's going to start the next game or not.
Yeah. I think it is a little bit of a worry, but I've gone quite strong on my bench. So I've got Ailing and Sufal on my bench. So if Simicast doesn't start, then it's a case of one of those coming in for that game week. And then obviously I will look to just move him on like ASAP, basically, before he
Yeah,
drops
yeah,
in price. But that's another reason for me, I guess, wanting to sit on my hands a little bit with the transfer this week so that anything like that comes up, I can hopefully, because my other concern obviously is Greenwood and
right.
whether or not he's going to continue to start. So a lot of Man United fans are thinking once Sancho comes in and all that sort of stuff. I'm kind of hoping the team will be much like it was at the end of the game.
Yeah, I think
So when Sancho actually came on, but obviously we still got Kofani to fit in there somewhere.
yeah,
So that's my
it's pretty tough. But I think based on how, because I thought Greenwood, I think he deserved a few more points. I think from that game, I thought he was, he was really attacking. He was quick, and he looked really hungry as well. So I'd be surprised if they left him out from the starting lineup for the next game.
yeah. I'm hoping so anyway. But I'm glad I've got a couple of people on the bench that I feel fairly confident with. Saying that, Brownhill was a bit of a disappointment because I did actually switch from Basuma to him last minute. He was like literally a last switch, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh, like everyone, I'm seeing everyone going Brownhill, so clearly he's gonna start. Trust me. Yeah, so went Brownhill, but unfortunately didn't start, so that was a bit frustrating. So I'm gonna have to look at moving him on as soon as possible. So we
there's
think, go on.
sorry, there's a question in the chat which I'm really interested in hearing your answer to.
Okay.
Actually, so it's from Arsenal, who is more likely to score against Chelsea? Now, obviously, I'm a Chelsea fan. What's your view on that one?
Oh, I am worried about us, Lewis, if I'm honest. Do you know, it's really hard. So at the weekend, I was at a friend's and we were discussing it all, and there
Hmm.
was just this. What's really hard is that often when you get into football, if you start following a club that's middle of the road or bottom table, you kind of know what you're getting into. And I mean that with the nicest respect to those teams.
Yeah, yeah,
But being an Arsenal fan and falling in love in the Invincible era with Henri and watching the decline of our club is just so difficult. It's
mm,
it's incredibly tough because we've known the highs and now we're just slipping to incredible lows that I just never thought our club would ever see. So thinking about our team at the moment, the only plus I can take from the last match that has been an issue for us in the past is that our heads didn't drop. So even
yeah,
despite us losing and doing, incredibly badly, none of the players dropped their heads. They still kept trying. Tierney still kept crossing balls into the box, even though there's nobody there to get on the end of them and things like that. So that's my only positive, I guess, from that match. If you're asking me who I think will score, I mean, I have said numerous times the only two I'd look at in our attack at the moment until we know this transfer window is done and settled is Saka and Emil Smith Rowe. They're the
mm,
only two I would really even kind of
yeah,
pay a second's moment to. I mean, Tierney looked really good. He was really attacking, but I really struggle with our defense, always have. And so until I know there's somebody to get on the end of his crosses, almost a bit like Digne
yeah,
when we thought Calvert-Lewin was out, and we were all like, well, he isn't really that much of an option anymore because Calvert-Lewin isn't available. It's a bit like that for me with Tierney. I wouldn't go near him until either Lacazette is back or we do sign a striker, which I hope that we do. So until that situation is sorted out, I wouldn't go near anybody other than Emil Smith Rowe or Saka.
yeah. I mean, I thought Tierney was really impressive. Actually, I think he created the most chances in this game. I think it was 6, and obviously sent a lot of crosses, and it's just the sort of goal scoring. But I also thought Emil Smith Rowe was really positive and really good, and I think he could be a really good player. I think obviously you were missing Party, I thought, on the weekend. So that was a quite big loss, wasn't it, just before the season as well?
Definitely. Yeah, it was quite tough. It was just a bad watch, to be honest. And
Yeah.
what was made worse was that I was almost sure Tony would score a brace against us. So that's kind of why I got him in. So to watch Mbeumo run the show, so it's quite a good segue into him, I guess.
Really good, yeah.
Was you know like, oh, not only are Arsenal losing, but I'm not getting any points here for my FPL team. But Mbeumo looks like a steal, right? At how much
For sure.
is he? 5.5 million.
5.5. Yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't actually like get any returns in the last match, but boy, he could have had a boatload, right?
Oh, he ran riot. I think, and with the sort of little partnership, the strike partnership that they had going on, it was Tony sort of dropping deeper to win the ball, or to sort of hold the ball, when the clearances came and stuff, or the long balls, and Waymo was just he looked a lot further than Tony for most parts of the game, and
Yeah, absolutely. I agree there. He almost looked like the main striker. I was
mm.
like, where's Tony? Get up there, get up there.
I mean, going forward, if he's someone that we could sort of look at and think, if people didn't own Tony already, he
Yeah.
would be that sort of nice enabler to unlock a player like Son maybe, or because I'm sure people will be looking at Son in the next couple of weeks. Well, this week I think, after his performance against City.
Yeah, so Sonny is my man, and I'm gutted not to have him at the start of this season. I really wanted to get him in, but 10 million just felt like so much money, and I am such a 3-4-3 girl from the start of the season that I really struggled
Yeah.
to move into a 5 in midfield formation for Sonny. But I have to admit, there's a bit of conflict here on in my head. So he looked brilliant and he got a goal, and I was kind of like, oh, gutted I don't have him. On the same hand, for 10 million, one goal, Ben Rama, 6 million. You can look at Greenwood, Jota, 7.5 million. It's what you're getting for the price of Son. If you can get 2 players for the same price, then that's kind of in my head what I was thinking with Son. And I know it's something that I also had to chat with Fergie about. So it was like kind of that whole, if you can get 2 players for the price of 1, then
Yeah.
you're probably better off. However, it was against City. That said, I mean, they haven't exactly looked strong against Leicester now or Spurs. So when people
No.
say he only got a goal, it was only, it was City. It's difficult to score against them. At the same time, he had a plethora of chances, and he could have scored more. So trying not to feel too upset about not owning him, just simply because I'm thinking about what I'm getting for my money at the moment.
Yeah. I
As you
think.
say, great fixtures though, and it is a bit scary looking about going forward without him.
I think in terms of the whether to bring Son or not, I think a lot of people originally looked at the sort of the fixtures and thought maybe he's a captaincy option, for game week 3, and maybe because I think that week Bruno plays Wolves, and Wolves looked quite defensively good, I'd say, against Leicester on the weekend. So I think maybe there's an argument for Son and a captain, and to captain him. So I think that's maybe a factor as well. But you're right. I mean, a lot of people scored this weekend, didn't they? A lot of people produced points, so it's hard to sort of single out different certain players like Son, because pretty much everyone, got points in our team
Yeah.
this weekend. So it's hard to take that data and sort of, think, right, I'm gonna bring him in based on that, because a lot of points, a lot of scorers. So just Son for me, although I would really like him in, again, I made this team for a reason, and just want to see, how it does over the next, at least 3 game weeks, and then look at it then.
International break is usually a good marker of where we're at, really. So say you've had an epic game week now at the start, but then your points really drop, and they drop until international break, and you haven't really made any massive changes to it, then you probably need to look at your team structure and what you can do to change that. However, if your points are still ticking in, that's when you can reassess and go, okay, well, these are the players that are letting me down, that are failing me. These are the ones I need to prioritize getting in and out. Okay, we had a couple of questions in the chat. Fadzil, best 8.5 striker to pair with Wilson, Ings, Antonio, DCL, or Bamford. What's your thoughts there, Lewis, on that?
Ings and Antonio was the first option, was it?
Yep, so it was Ings, Antonio, DCL, or Bamford to partner with Wilson.
It's a really interesting question, actually, because I think Ings and Antonio are very, very good short-term options as a combination. So if you look at their fixtures, I think West Ham hit, they play in Europe soon, and then you're talking about Ings, who has a tough run actually in game week 4 and onwards. So in terms of short-term, I think they are the best combination. However, when you look at Bamford and Dominic Calvert-Lewin as a separate combination long-term, Everton's fixtures are great. DCL has obviously scored when everyone, sort of questioned him. Bamford, again, his fixtures turn great actually in game week 5, and you know what Leeds are like, they can score against anyone anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a tough question actually. So short term, I'd probably say Ings and Antonio, but long term, maybe Bamford and Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, I would side with you there on that, actually. What do we think of this Dennis fella whilst we're on the forward, this 5 million for Watford? So he got goal and an assist against Villa. Should we be piling on? Is he the next bandwagon? I think Ben Rama's taking a lot of the spotlight, but I see here that Dennis has a knock, but should we stick him on the watch list, Lewis, do you think?
I mean, I think so, because obviously we know how many forwards Watford have got. How many is it? 12? I'm not entirely
it's
sure.
a lot. I was like, when I was doing the preseason videos, like, who do I choose here to be a forward option?
To be honest, I think he'd probably be more of a short-term option. I think he played that well last game. You can't really not start him. I mean, I'd be surprised if Dennis wasn't started again next game, based on that performance. But I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it'll just maybe be the injury whether or not he starts, right? So cool. Okay. SV Sibi says Alonso for sure. What's your thoughts? So what do we think of Go Alonso over Shaw?
Well, actually, being a Chelsea fan, obviously I know a lot more about Chelsea. So with Chilwell, he played against Weymouth day after the day after our main team played. I think we won 13-0, as expected, to be honest. But he played. He's had a lot of game time now. He's had game time now. So in terms of Alonso, I sort of knew he played the first game, although I didn't bring him in. I knew Chile came back in. But in terms of that move, I think it's a very clever move, because Alonso, if he starts the next game, he definitely won't start the game after. So for me, yeah, it's a good move.
Glenn Kempster says they have 2.5 million budget now after swapping Saka for Bergwijn, planning ahead for future swapping. So wow, that's a nice bit of money in the bank.
Mm.
Could be used for, as we're still on Chelsea, Lukaku. What are your thoughts on whether or not you're gonna rush in to get Lukaku, Lewis?
I think, to be honest, I wouldn't look too much into the Crystal Palace game because they're the sort of teams that we were winning quite comfortably against last season. I mean, we can beat top teams, but not by a lot. We also don't finish a lot. However, when Lukaku comes back, I imagine that will change. I think we need to just look at the Arsenal game as I wouldn't sort of take that into account when looking at a Chelsea versus Arsenal match. To be honest, for me, form goes out of the window in those sort of games. So even as a Chelsea fan, although maybe you're looking at it thinking I'm quite worried, I'm also looking at that game. I'm actually quite worried because it's a huge sort of huge, maybe not to outsiders, but Chelsea and Chelsea fans, a huge game, and they're still, Arsenal's still a bit of a nightmare for us, because obviously you beat us in the final of the FA Cup, and so obviously that sort of carried on a little bit, and but yeah, I would probably worry slightly as a Chelsea fan going into that.
Yeah, well, I'm shocked to hear that actually, because I thought
Yeah,
you
you probably
guys.
won't agree.
Yeah, well, I just, yeah, I think given our performance the last couple of seasons, and then obviously in the last game, can't see anything other than you absolutely steamrolling us, to be honest, especially if Lukaku is playing. I could see him doing really well. I
Mm.
think the problem with Lukaku at the moment is we've all set up our teams lovely, and none of us have a real spot for a premium forward,
Yeah,
do we? We haven't got a Kane or a Lukaku, or there's no Aguero anymore. So we haven't really got that spot there. It really would mean for a lot of people to, well, probably 3 or 4 transfers, to be honest, to be able to facilitate him.
of course. Yeah,
And at the moment, I'm kind of in the Sun camp again with Lukaku, as in how many players can I get for his 11.5
yeah,
at the
exactly.
moment. Like, I'm not saying I won't ever have him in, because I probably will. But for the moment, he's a kind of, I just want to sit. I need to see him. I need to see him settled. I want to see him like banging in those goals, and then I will start to collect up some transfers and see what I can do to facilitate him.
Yeah, I think.
Um,
Sorry, just
no, no,
just to
crack on.
touch on Lukaku again quickly. I think for me, my sort of plan with Lukaku would be probably game week 7, maybe.
Yeah.
So that
You
sort
have
of
a
period.
fixture switch there, don't you, where you have a
Yes,
nice run of games. So.
yeah. So for me, options like Chilwell, Mason Mount, and Lukaku. I think that's where I'd be, even as a Chelsea fan. That's where I'd be looking at,
Awesome.
bringing them in.
Cool. So Sidant Kumar says Stones as a differential captain in game week 2. Thoughts, Lewis?
I would that would probably be something I would avoid personally. We haven't really seen City defense. I know we're talking about the best defense last year in terms of stats, but I think we haven't really seen that really strong defense since last season. Even the Champions League with Chelsea, the cup game with Leicester, the opening game with Spurs. In terms of the City defenders now, I'm not too sure if there's enough value there quite yet, especially because of the fixtures as well.
Agreed. And I just think, this is something we covered in the Fergie video. Being differential for differential sake is
Yeah,
just, at this stage, is just not, you don't need to do it. Just stick with the crowd. Bruno, Salah, like, if you really want to look outside that, I'm sure there's still some really highly owned players that somebody might look at as a differential. My team, and who I would consider. So yeah, maybe even like an Ings, outside of that,
mm,
or if I get confirmation that Greenwood started, these are differentials, but I wouldn't go mad outside of Salah and Bruno, to be honest. It's just, I
yeah.
don't think you need to do it at this stage. It's you know, it'll be fun enough having Stones in your team and him doing something.
Mm.
because he's still going to be a fair differential. In that respect, I don't think you need to captain. Um, and Sacco, I think we covered your question, buddy, on the -8 for Lukaku. I don't think it's the right time.
No.
Innocent and Mbeumo, I have Ings, but I am concerned about the fact that he had no shots during the game. Is it perhaps the missing Grealish factor? What's the thoughts on that, Lewis?
I just look at that game and I think, yes, Villa were quite poor defensively, and I sort of question that the Villa defence with them losing Chelsea, John Terry as a coach. So the defence was always a question to me. But in terms of Ings, I just look at the fixtures and think I wouldn't necessarily take him out because you've got Villa have got Newcastle at home next game. Newcastle have just shipped 4 goals. So for me, I want to be targeting Newcastle at the moment, as a manager, and I'm looking at that game,
Yeah.
thinking this is where Ings can get some, get a haul similar to Antonio. So I would just hold off on ditching Ings at the moment.
Yeah, my thought process is he doesn't have Watkins yet, who is still to come back in.
Oh
So I
yeah.
think once that partnership is up and rolling, it'll be hard to look past either of them. Really. So hopefully
Mm.
he's back for the next game. Not really sure why he missed out entirely in the last match, like not even on the bench was a bit odd. But yeah, I wouldn't be looking to shift things on just yet. If nothing else, he is an easy downgrade. So give it another, week or two, like Lewis said, with great
Mm.
fixtures. Give it another week or two, see how it does. If he doesn't get any shots against those clubs and he's not doing anything against those clubs, then you can
Yeah.
downgrade or, upgrade then to a Kane or Lukaku if you're fruity and you've got enough money in the bank.
Mm.
Okay, we'll do a couple more minutes because I obviously didn't have my sound on at the start, so I just want to kind of make up for that. But
Yeah, cool. I've just seen a question in the chat,
yeah,
and it was
cool,
I've
brilliant.
seen it. I've seen it a couple of times, and it was, is Harvey Barnes a hold? Um, and this is really relevant to me actually because I own Barnes, and I'm sort of looking at Barnes. I thought he was really good. He was high up the pitch for Leicester, just behind Vardy. He's just getting back to fitness as well, so he's not. We know that Rodgers has said he's not quite there yet, and I just feel that when he gets there, which could be next game, we don't know, he could really do a good job. And I just think West Ham, although it's West Ham, they didn't look fantastic against Newcastle. And I think if Newcastle were a better team, West Ham could have conceded a couple more goals than two, to be honest. So in terms of Barnes, I would be probably looking to hold. To be honest, I wouldn't worry too much about because I sort of expected that against Wolves. I expected a tough, 1-0 or a 2-0 type of game. But I think you've got to look at the fact that he plays West Ham and then he plays Norwich after that. So for me, again, I think he's a hold for now.
Yeah, I mean, Barnes was one of the ones coming into Gameweek 1 that I was quite worried about not owning just because it seemed like everyone on Twitter actually owned him. And
Mm.
for me, I've never quite got it. With Barnes, like I think in the past, I've very much been one of the people that have been on the purple patch and then, been like held in way
Yeah.
too long after that. He is definitely a player that can fall,
Oh yeah.
for a streak of games. I think I was just worried when that streak would come. So if you have him, I agree with you. I think he's a hold for now, and
Mm.
then wait and see if he like. There's a reason why you guys got him in, right? So see if he starts to haul. See if he gets on that purple patch. If he gets going, then yeah, happy days. I can see him doing that for a couple of weeks in a row. Just with him, it's going to be about timing on when to kind of get
Yeah.
back off again. So Chang, we did mention the whole Rafinha to Benrahma debate much earlier on in the stream, but you did ask, could we rank Saint Maximin, Richarlison, Ings from best to worst if money isn't an issue? So do you want to go with that one first there, Lewis?
So who are the players again? Sorry, was it Benrahma, Ings, and
Saint,
Richarlison?
yeah, Saint Maximum, Richarlison, Ings, they're the three.
It's quite a tough one
Yeah, it's a tough
because
one, that
it is a really tough one because I'm not a huge fan of Richarlison. However, the fixtures are great. So yeah, I mean, Benrahma has okay fixtures short term, but we have to remember, that West Ham are playing playing in Europe soon as well. Ings again, was it Ings the third one?
Yes, yeah.
Ings, he's has a couple of good games now, and then they sort of hit that tough patch. So I mean, it's hard to say. It really is hard to order them three actually.
Yeah.
Long term, maybe Richarlison, but I am really not a fan of Richarlison.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of conflicted there.
Same.
Long term, maybe Richarlison, Antonio, and then Ings. But short term, probably Ings, Antonio, then Ings, then Richarlison. So tough one.
Yeah, I think he was asking Saint Maximum, but yeah, I think
Oh,
you'd probably be in the same camp there, really, wouldn't you? You'd stick Saint Maximum in where you said Antonio is probably what I would do. So
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll do a couple more. Thanks everybody for giving us your questions in the chat. Bye there, Focus. Thanks for dropping in. Do I keep Pulisic or flip to Grealish? The goat asks. You're the Chelsea fan there, Lewis. Any thoughts on that one?
Another tough question actually, because obviously,
Captain America.
yeah. I mean, to be honest, he's looked okay. He was good last game, but we have to remember this is Crystal Palace. If we look at who's more fixture proof offensively, it would probably be Man City. We both have pretty tough fixtures, and I know Man City weren't great against Spurs or Chelsea or Leicester, but even as a Chelsea fan, I'd probably put more confidence in the City attack for now. So I'd have to go to probably Grealish.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure about the transfer though. I think maybe sticking for now.
Yeah, I think sticking for now might be worth it actually.
Yeah, I just feel like although Pulisic could have his minutes managed next March, not entirely sure if it's worth the transfer.
Yeah, agreed.
Although if it was a wild card, I would probably just stick Grealish in, but that isn't the case. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right, guys. Thank you all so much. I want to try and keep these streams around the 40-minute mark just so people who want to watch them back, aren't here forever, pretty much, of wanting to do so. So if you've enjoyed the stream, then please do like and subscribe and hit that notification bell because it'll tell you when we are going live next. We are hoping this will be a weekly thing with myself and Lewis. If Lewis can't do it, then I'm sure one of the mods will step in, but hopefully this will be a weekly thing with myself and Lewis. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who got their questions into the chat. Sorry if we didn't get around to it, but we will be here hopefully around this time, live at 5, around 5 o'clock on a Monday to answer more questions for you guys and deload and de-stress before we look ahead to the new game week. Please do go and follow Lewis on Twitter. What's your handle on Twitter, Lewis? Where can we find you?
It is at FPL Reactions. At FPL Reaction. Sorry.
That's okay. And so make sure you go and check him out. So I've got him as FPL Reactions on screen, so just take the S off and I'll get that sorted for the next stream, definitely. But hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and it's a goodbye from me and a goodbye from Lewis.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Catch you later. Okay, we should be on the